If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyl and Derek Caldwell of the Hoyl Financial Group. You know, we've told you that most people aren't preparing for retirement with an advisor, a written plan, and they're not even doing it with an estate plan. There's two trends that could make the estate part really worse. They say the price of downsizing has gotten so high that people are staying in their long-time homes and they're aging in place. Things just stay the same, so they don't see a need for planning. Then you got boomers. They're so afraid of running out of money. They have the attitude of, I'm going to need all of it. And if there's something left over, you can just have it. I don't need an estate plan. So what do you think about this? And how could these attitudes really lead to problems later on?
Well, Jess, it's interesting. You know, a lot of people used to go buy a new house when they're retiring, but I've seen so many people go look at downsizing. But when you move to a smaller house in sometimes a newer neighborhood, the property taxes are 80 to 120% higher than where you're currently located. And then, you know, when people move, they've got to buy different furniture, they've got to redecorate. All those things cost so much money. So we're seeing people kind of stay there and really enjoy what they had. When you see people, they moved to a house, they worked all those years, they never got to enjoy their backyard. They didn't get to enjoy the great things about their house. We're seeing a lot of people do that. But I also think the boomer thing, talking about, you know, that they're going to use all their money so it doesn't matter. Jess, that's more than any reason right there to have a plan. That's a scary mindset. It really is. Because, you know, if you can put an income plan in place, you can really protect that income for years to come to make sure you don't run out of income. You know, Jess, people always say that the number one fear is the fear of running out of money. I totally disagree. The fear is running out of income. It's such an important thing. And, you know, Jess, when you talk about that estate planning, you know, when you have lots of money, you need a strong estate plan. But when you have less money, or you have not a lot of money, that estate plan matters so much. Knowing who you want to make your decisions if you're unhealthy or have some financial issues is so important. You need a power of attorney for health and for wealth, but you really need a will and really protect those things. Some people think you need a trust. Come see us. Let's decide if you need a trust or not. But all of those things are so important, and having the right attitude about estate planning. You know, Jess, what happens so often is if you don't make that decision, your daughter-in-law or son-in-law are going to make that decision. So while you're competent and smart, you really need to sit down and put that plan in place. You know, at Hoyl Financial, when we create a retirement plan for you, estate planning is a huge part of that cornerstone, just as important as tax planning, income planning, risk management. All of those things are important, but having a plan, working the plan, but most of all, if you don't have an estate plan, you need to call us. We need to partner with somebody to help you put that in place.
You know, before technology took over certain jobs, believe it or not, there was someone who actually had to do them. I'm talking about when milk was delivered door to door, street lamps were lit by hand, telephone operators manually connected calls by plugging cables into switchboards. Obviously, technology came along, made those jobs obsolete. Now we're seeing something kind of similar here with artificial intelligence. And I wonder if you have some folks out there that are concerned that their job is going to be taken over by AI. They're going to be asked to leave the workforce maybe sooner than when they were ready. How do you help them prepare? You know, for instance, if someone's 50 or 60 and they worry that technology could change their career plans, how do you make sure that retirement remains a choice rather than forced or a surprise?
Well, I think within the next hour, they need to call us at Hoyl Financial. They need to put our past 38 years of experience to work for them. You know, Jess, when you have time on your side, you can put a plan together. Let's just talk about income. When we see these income strategies that roll up every year at 8, 9, or 10%, there's a new strategy out there that's rolling up at 10%. That's much more than what you consistently depend on growing your portfolio. So when you have that time on your side, you can roll up that income. And if you're 59 and a half, you need to jump on that bandwagon and do that. But Jess, I'm having lots of people come see me that are really nervous about AI taking over their challenges. I'm seeing people my age go back to school on the weekends or get some other training to make sure they're the best in their job. It's really interesting, Jess. There's kind of a wave of people right now doing self-help classes, whether it's Dale Carnegie or whatever. And I really think that a lot of times the AI scares people out of their career when you need to hold your head high. People need your knowledge. It happens all the time. Learning a new skill isn't always easy, and I agree with that. But for some people, you've got to come up with a different plan. It happens all the time. Jess, over my career, the 38 years, I've seen lots of people change careers later in life and really enjoyed their new career. It's been really interesting. Retiring earlier changes the math. All of a sudden, you can't delay Social Security as long, for example. But for a lot of people, we can sit down and really figure out how to create that stream of income. What bucket of money to use at the right time. It's everything, Jess. It's so important. Procrastination is what wipes out so many people by not doing that planning. But I really think with people like me that have done the same job their whole life, they kind of have to be flexible. And I think in this new world, layoffs are going to happen, changes are going to happen, and we're just going to have to work with those. But I also see, Jess, a lot of people have to retire early because of health. And that's another huge issue out there. So being flexible is everything when you think about your job and possible retirement.
For those who want to say, you know what, I don't want to mess around with the market. I don't have time to have all that risk and, that anxiety and that noise. I just want to know that I can grow and protect my money. And I keep hearing about this mailbox money, this guaranteed income. What can you tell us, Steve?
Mailbox money is real. What we really like to do is help people sit down and make a tax-efficient income plan where if you have a spouse, neither one of you can outlive that money. Just it's real, it's there. One of the things we have to think about is catch-up buckets along the way, because what we want to do is make sure you have the same buying power for the rest of your life. But mailbox money is incredible. I'll be sitting in my office working, and I'll see some couple pop in. They pull up. One of them runs in and signs some papers, change of address, maybe a change of beneficiary. Maybe they had a grandchild, and see them leave. And I had this crazy photographic memory. My mind will flash back when they first came to our office. They sat on opposite end of the conference room. They were so stressed about this final phase of life called retirement. What was cool is they heard us say, give your boss 2 more years or give us 2 hours. They took the challenge. They came in and gave us those 2 hours. Then each week over the next 8 weeks, we worked meticulously to make that plan, to tweak that plan, to bulletproof that plan, to make sure they had the retirement they always wanted. And so now, either 6 months or every year, they pop in. We do a retirement review with them. And one of the things we do here at Hoyl Financial, Jess, is we say, please give us permission when you come to see us to tell you honestly where we think you are in this plan. Are you spending too much money? Could you spend more money? Could you tweak this? Could you tweak that? So together in our partnership, we're making retirement everything they want it to be, Jess. It's such a great journey.
And you're exactly right there. Retirement is a journey, right? And how do you get to that final destination called retirement? How do you make sure that you can do what you want, when you want, and how you want in retirement? You have earned it, right? There's some folks out there that are listening to our show right now as we talk about, building and protecting income in retirement. They're saying, you know what, I'll figure out this whole income thing when I get there. I don't need to worry about it. But what you do need to think about is how you position your money now, possibly within the next 5 or so years before retirement, really determines how much income it can possibly produce. And the Retire Texas Style Review, this is built for people who are planning ahead, right? Not scrambling later. So we want you to be proactive today. If you'd like to sit down with Steve or Derek, our member of the team, again, as we say here, give us 2 hours or give your boss 2 more years. You'll be able to sit down for this Retire Texas Style Review.
If you hear anything from our show today, Jess, I was in the oil field working the week before last and met with some clients that we had for years. And they were early 70s, both still working because they love what they do. And, we were looking at their 401k, and we really sat down and showed them, when you were 59 and a half, if you would have taken control of this money think how much income you would have today. And let bygones be bygones. But if that's a lesson for the listeners today, if you're 59 and a half, we need to find out if you can take control of your money. Because, 90% of people can. And all of a sudden, they can let it roll up every year for income, or they can let it for growth. There's so many opportunities. I think of it a lot, Jess, as growing up, we always had a garden. You till the dirt, you fertilize it, you plant, and then you reap that harvest. And that's what we were saying. If we would have started planting that garden, 10 or 12 years earlier, think how much larger the harvest would be. We talk a lot about climbing the mountain of retirement, doing all the right things as you get up that mountain. And then you turn around and you come down and do the spin down. You're taking money to live on. You're making estate planning, who I'm going to leave this to, who I'm going to leave that to. So climbing the mountain is so important, but when you turn that corner to come back down that mountain, if we've planned well going up, coming down is going to be so much smoother, Jess. That's what it's about right there.
Steve, there was a list floating around about the first year of retirement, and the number one tip caught my eye. They say, don't stop saving. In fact, one recommendation was to save about 10% of your Social Security check. Does that really make sense in the real world? Have you seen this before?
Jess, I see people that are good savers. They never can stop saving. It's like people that walk 2.3 miles every day. They do it every day. They don't know how to stop. They don't know how to take a break. If they didn't do it one day, they'd stop. And I see savers the same way. I used to look at people and go, why are you saving more? And then I think, what a great attribute. And I think the neat thing about that is teaching your kids, your nieces, your nephews to be good savers. But, a lot of people are talking about saving 10% of Social Security. Forever it didn't make sense. But I'm going to tell you that I think if things don't change with the government, that we're eventually going to have this reduction in income from Social Security. So if you're saving that 10%, when we have that reduction, it's not going to hit you very hard. Some people save 5% of Social Security. I think it's different strokes for different folks. Jess, I have people that come in here and say, I'm going to spend every dollar I can get my hands on. I had some people I met with in the oil field a few years ago, they couldn't get enough money in their hands to spend. And they had so much saved, but they spent so much. So if you're going to continue to spend, we've got to have a stellar income plan. But most of all, if you hear anything listening today, the sooner you start, the more you're going to have to spend. It just makes sense. It really, really does. So I think saving is great, and I think Social Security was made to be not a retirement plan, but I think people really need to plan for a reduction in Social Security. It's real, Jess.
They've been saying that for years. I think now the new projection is within the next 6 years, it'll go down about 23%. And really what is happening is the baby boomers, they're all, moving on, entering retirement. This big surge of retirees is taking a pause. So less people are putting money in, which means less money going out. How that's going to shape out in the next 6 years, we will all ride this ride together and find out. But when it comes to Social Security and the hundreds of claiming strategies there are and how and when does it fit within your income plan, it is all custom to you and your retirement plan. This is where this Retire Texas Style review comes from. It's going to cover your income plan, your Social Security timing, that and much more.
Jess, just one more thing on Social Security. We really sit down and show people what is the right time for them to take Social Security, not their neighbor, not their friend, not the TikTok advisor. It's really important. But just, a lot of people that are, if you're going to save part of your Social Security, maybe you want to kick the date down the road to full retirement age, maybe to age 70. People just don't know what they don't know. And when people realize that from age 62 to age 70, Social Security rolls up each and every year 8%. So even if you wait an extra couple months, your Social Security is going to be higher. But we can really help you sit down and find that sweet spot for you to take Social Security, because it's when it's right for you. But don't make that mistake. Just because you're 62, you can take it. I see so many people getting the clawback. And once you start taking it, if you can't pay that right back, that roll-up never starts again. So call us. Make an educated decision with that bucket of money called Social Security.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derek or a member of the Hoyl Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
Investment advice offered through Hoyl Wealth Management, a Texas-registered investment advisor able to provide investment advice in states where it's registered, exempt, or excluded from registration. Content contained herein should not be construed as an offer or solicitation for investment advice or for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided is obtained from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to its accuracy or completeness. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyl, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyl is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyl is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.